Are you tired of the MCU? Just when you thought Disney would be the only studio making movies for the next 100 years, DC has stepped up with a dark, twisted challenge to Marvel's supremacy: Joker. Although it promises to be fresh, the new movie will most definitely be drawing on all the past Jokers. We, the Binger, have got you covered with a rundown on the history of the Joker and how the new version might transcend them all. Heath Ledger in The Dark Knight. Heath Ledger's portrayal of the Joker is, to most people, the Joker. He captured the manic energy, the twisted fatalistic humor, and the desperation behind that crooked smile. But most of all, he acted as the perfect opposing force to the so-serious Batman by reflecting him back through a warped mirror. In short, everything came together. What made Ledger's Joker so compelling was that looking at him, you could tell there used to be a person under everything. First of all, there are the scars that are either self-inflicted or the outcome of abuse. Either way, they're a marker of a very dark period in his life. One that he's still running from and trying to hide with humor and makeup. Speaking of which, the makeup that, although an attempt at masking himself, reveals more than it hides. He is committed to putting it on and keeping it there, even though it's obvious that he's probably still wearing yesterday's paint. Apparently, much of the inspiration for the makeup and Christopher Nolan's film in general came from the paintings of Francis Bacon. Looking at them, it's easy to see why. The deformed figures they depict are just like us, but a little off. Skewed, grotesque versions of what we could be. Although nobody who watched 10 Things I Hate About You would have expected that Heath Ledger would give life to the uncomfortable canvases of Francis Bacon via portrayal of DC Comics' villain, the performance has now become the stuff of legend, and not only for how it appeared on screen. He famously locked himself away from other people for an entire month and compiled what is now known as his Joker Diary, a collection of inspirations for the character. A profile in the New York Times reported that part of the diary is a list of things that the Joker finds funny. One entry on the list is AIDS. Since Ledger's death, much has been made about how the role is what really killed him. How after descending into the depths of such a deranged mind, he couldn't climb back out. Whatever the case may be, his turn as the Joker will be impossible to forget, and Joaquin Phoenix certainly has some shoes to fill. But things are already looking good for Phoenix. The praise of the new film has been pretty much unanimous ahead of its release. It got an 8-minute standing ovation at the Venice Film Festival, and the talk of Oscar nominations is already getting quite loud. Cesar Romero in the 60s. Let's go back to the very beginning. The Joker role that had a surprisingly lasting impact on how the Joker's been played since, even though it may look ridiculous all these years later. Cesar Romero was an actor who, even back then, would not be the first name to pop into your head in relation to the Joker. As a tall, handsome young man, the son of immigrants from Spain and Cuba, he was typecast as the Latin lover for most of his younger years. As he aged, he was again typecast, but this time as the generic non-white character, even playing a few roles as Native Americans, despite his Cuban and Spanish heritage. It was a different time. In the 60s, he was given his most famous role, and the one that concerns us now. He played the Joker in the TV show and later movie that was simply called Batman. This first iteration in the cinematic history of Batman is famous for many reasons, but certainly not its realism, grit, or complexity. It was a fun, campy version of Batman and the Joker, which played to Romero's strength as an old-timey villain. He rolls his R's and talks like a character out of a Jane Austen novel, with lots of shalls and multi-syllabic words.
Oh, curses and criminy, what confounded luck!
He laughs at his own jokes, but not like Heath Ledger's Joker, where it's deranged and coming from somewhere within all of us. More like a dad telling a pun. There is also, of course, the mustache. In real life, and many of his other roles, Cesar Romero is a handsome guy. A smooth operator with impeccable style. An integral part of his allure was his mustache, which he refused to shave for his turn as the Joker. If you look closely at his upper lip, you can see a fuzzy little patch that was simply covered with some white paint. While it's easy to look back and laugh at Romero's interpretation of the villain, he fit the campy tone of the 60s Batman perfectly. His maniacal laugh, which paved the way for many others, was the perfect counterpoint to the dorky straight man played by Adam West, who climbed buildings with his cape draping the wrong way and described himself and Robin as duly deputized officers of the law. Joaquin Phoenix's new interpretation of the Joker will be a far cry from Cesar Romero's, but as an aspiring clown comedian, you can bet that he'll take a few pages out of Romero's Joker playbook. Jack Nicholson as the Joker and Jack Napier. Until Heath Ledger came along, Jack Nicholson's Joker was the one to beat. The most comic booky version of a Batman movie, directed by Tim Burton with Michael Keaton in the titular role, this was and is one for the ages. But what about the villain? Like many of Nicholson's characters, his Joker is very stylish. He had some great outfits, but also a swagger in his walk that is unmatched by any Joker before or since. Although this comes naturally to Nicholson, part of the cool confidence of his character comes from Jack Napier, who is the gangster who becomes the Joker after falling into a vat of chemicals. A scene that exemplifies Nicholson's Joker perfectly is the one where he brings his team of thugs to the Flugelheim Museum to dance around and destroy priceless works of art, sparing only one painting, a Francis Bacon. Nicholson's Joker marks the beginning of the transition from an unapologetically campy prankster to someone more brutal, or at least more human, with some cracks in the facade for some real feeling to show through. He's got the still cartoony but very sculpted face that's always a smile, and an anger that's likely channeled from Jack Nicholson's past roles in movies like One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest and his time spent courtside at Lakers games. As the forefather of the Jokers we've known since, we will likely see some of Jack Nicholson in Joaquin Phoenix's new, more down-to-earth portrayal. Mark Hamill in cartoons and video games. Although Heath Ledger may be the most critically acclaimed Joker, to anyone who grew up in the 90s and 2000s, Mark Hamill is the real Joker. The funny thing about his performance, though, is a lot of people have no idea that it was him. Hamill is known, of course, for playing Luke Skywalker in Star Wars since the 1970s, until he meditated himself into the ether in The Last Jedi. Because of how instantly recognizable he became as Luke Skywalker, it was understandably hard for Hamill to be cast in anything else. Just like Daniel Radcliffe will always be Harry Potter, no matter how many weird Swiss Army indie movies he stars in, Mark Hamill will always be known as Luke Skywalker. But Hamill did eventually find an ingenious way of circumventing the problem. Instead of appearing in live-action films, he began to dip his toes into voice acting, eventually becoming the Joker. How better to distance himself from the uber-vanilla Luke Skywalker than playing the most over-the-top maniacal villain there is? He first played the Joker in 1992's Batman the Animated Series. Since then, he's been playing different versions of the character in different spin-off series, like Justice League and Superman the Animated Series, as well as Batman Beyond: Return of the Joker, which might be the only straight-to-DVD movie that's also really good. Hamill's Joker may be the purest form of the character ever portrayed, not edging too far into either camp or the grim realism of The Dark Knight. Although the movies and shows were all well and good, it's Hamill's video game work that made his Joker so dear to fans' hearts. He voices the villain in all three installments of the groundbreaking Arkham trilogy: Arkham Asylum, Arkham City, and Arkham Knight. These games pretty much set the blueprint for combat systems in modern video games, but also let fans inhabit Batman like never before, letting them control their stake in the fight against the Joker, Mark Hamill. Although it seems very unlikely that the new Joker movie will have a video game spin-off, you can be sure that Joaquin Phoenix will be drawing on Hamill's iconic laugh. Jared Leto. In the life of every long-running character, there are low points. Jared Leto's version of the Joker is one such moment in his history. After acting for a while and then taking a break to focus on his band, 30 Seconds to Mars, Leto was really noticed for his acting chops after Dallas Buyers Club, where he played a transgender woman with HIV. He went method for the role, losing more than 40 pounds and staying in character the whole time while he was on set. It's likely his commitment to the character, reminiscent of Ledger's all-out performance in The Dark Knight, that got him the role as the Joker in 2016's Suicide Squad. However, fans of the Joker in the DC universe in general are probably wishing that Leto had remained an emo rocker and living mannequin/muse for Gucci's creative director Alessandro Michele. Leto again went full method for Suicide Squad, but the other cast members thought he went too far, and as evidenced in the film, real-life antics couldn't stand in for a thoughtful performance. Apparently, Leto sent a live rat to Margot Robbie and a dead pig to the rest of the cast. Antics aside, Leto didn't have much to work with. His Joker was conceived as more of a hedonistic club rat than a deranged supervillain. Where Ledger's Joker can be seen as no one other than the Joker, Leto's is a type. The white guy wannabe gangbanger who gets a few face tats to look tougher. For Phoenix, it won't be hard to beat. Joaquin Phoenix's new Joker. Joaquin Phoenix and director Todd Phillips took a different approach to the Joker. Where every other appearance of the villain has been in a classic if remarkable superhero film, this one is different. As well as being based on the classic Killing Joke comic, this movie's Joker is based primarily on a film from 1928, which inspired the Joker in the comic books. The film, The Man Who Laughs, is about a carnival freak who had been disfigured and has a permanent grin on his face. He looks a lot like the Joker, or the Joker looks a lot like him. The new Joker is also an origin story, so you won't see him riding around with his head hanging out of a cop car, reducing Gotham City to pure chaos. At this point, he's a regular guy trying to make it in the world of stand-up comedy, and he can't catch a break in his career or his love life. Disenchanted with the world and disappointed by his therapist, he's ready to fight back, along with Gotham City's disenfranchised underclass. The new Joker is more political, more normal, but also more remarkable than any that have ever come before. Joker promises to be one of the best comic book movies ever made, and will be a welcome break from the intergalactic hijinks of the Avengers. But will Phoenix's Joker hold up against the greats like Mark Hamill's animated Joker or Heath Ledger's in The Dark Knight? Let us know what you think in the comments down below, and be sure to subscribe to The Binger for more on the Joker.